think this camera's going out. Okay, this is for Mazda only. Our channel plate, bottom channel plate, is PM-UPR. 218 thousandths balls. I'm just gonna, I don't have the kit yet, so I'm just gonna, I got extras. Go ahead and change these out so I don't have to go back through it when I get my kit. You got 4 check balls that go there. The separator plate is AJ. This bolt here is 2.845. This one here is 3.750, I believe. Pretty damn close to it. And I thought this is how it went. Yep. Mazda valve body. Manual valve body. They have this plug. It's longer of the two. So make sure it goes in this end. And the little leg's going to face to the outboard. And the spring's going to go in. Valve's going to go in with the stem in. Make sure the spring gets around it. The short end plug. And the little leg's going to face to the outboard again. Stem out on the valve, spring, the leg's going to face to the outboard again. And then make sure that spring is centered up in the bore. Large end of the valve facing out. Spring. Little plug goes in the sleeve. Does not matter which direction it goes, but I would always put it back the way it was. And then the retainer sits in front of the valve just like so. The little hole faces outboard. Spring. The long leg of the valve faces out. Then the retainer goes in front of that. The little leg facing to the outboard again. Leave the manual valve out for the momentary. Stem out on the valve. Spring. This retainer comes in from this side. And the little leg faces to the outboard again. And then make sure it's centered up into the bore. The stem faces out. Spring. The leg faces the outboard. And that's a little bit too big. Make sure it's centered in the bore. Stem faces out. Spring. In plug. Oh, I got that in the wrong hole. Goes in here. And the retainer sits in front again, just like so. Stem out on the valve. Spring. Little leg faces out. Make sure spring's centered in the bore. The leg faces, or the stem faces out. Spring. The leg faces out again. And then make sure you're centered in the bore. Manual valve is different. It's 4 inches. 4 inches 800 thousandths, and it will just fall out of there, so be careful when you're moving the valve body around, it doesn't just fall out. Got 4 steel balls, 5 rubber balls, and a filter, and a little leg faces this way on the filter. And let's see, steel, steel, rubber, steel, rubber, and rubber, rubber, I believe it goes right there. Nope, I am wrong. This one goes down here, and this one goes right there. And I guess we can just go ahead and put this on here. Accumulator body, PM-LWR. Stem up on the valve, spring, and the leg facing out on the retainer. And then make sure it's centered up in the board. Now, I don't have my kit yet, so I can get to these after the fact, so I'm just going to leave them out. But the Accumulators have sealing rings that are scarf cut to go together just like that. If you need to put grease in here, by all means put grease. Here's 2 on each one. Spring, O-ring on here, lube that all up real well. And your snap ring. Hollow end up on the valve. Spring. And retainer. Where did my screwdriver go? Make sure your spring is centered again. Stem up on the valve. Spring. End plug. And retainer. See if we got pressure on that. No, we don't. There's my screwdriver. Alright, stem up on the valve, spring, end plug, and retainer sits in front of that, just like so. Now this one you may need to have to put it in a vise to get this spring back in. Ball, spring, end plug. And this thing is pretty stout. See if I can do this away from me. Yeah, there we go. And retainer. Stem up on the valve. Spring, and retainer, make sure that spring is centered, stem up, spring, end plug, and retainer, the leg facing out. Now we got the 10 millimeter here and here. And let's see, where the heck is it? We have a nut that goes on this one. Not there, not there. What the heck is that? No, it's kind of covered up. Oh, right there. You have to take all your solenoids out to get to it. And then we have two filters. We have this one, has an angled end, faces this way. And we have a square one, and it sits in that pocket right there, and it's going to have to poke up through the separator plate with this little edge right here, so make sure that's sitting properly when you put that separator plate on. On your accumulators, there is something important to know. On this accumulator right here, there is a shim that goes in there. I forgot to cover it because I forgot about it and it was stuck to the accumulator. So put your sealing rings on there like we talked about. Put that shim in there. Put your spring in, and then your cover goes on. Make sure your spring gets inside the cover. And then it's just the accumulator. With their sealing rings, spring, and then the cover on here. And I'd also forgot that we were going to put the lockup valve in the valve body, and it has showed up, so I'm going to have to take this valve body back apart. Let me get it down to that point, and then we will discuss how to put it in. Alright, we're back down to where we need to be. So, take our valve out. Spring and other valve. Going to get a valve stem out on the valve. A spring. And a sleeve with a valve inside of it. Make sure that spring gets up the side of your sleeve. Now, on the separator plate that goes on this part right here, this hole right here, you are going to get a plug . little dude right there. You can put that in that hole and take a punch and a hammer and peen it from both sides and flatten it out so it does not come out of the plate. Let me get that done and I'll be right back. It did not say anything in the instructions about having to drill it, but my plug would not go in there. So I drilled it out to 62 thousandths and then it fit. And you just peen it in there like that. And then you just reassemble it like we had it before. And that's all there is to that. I'm going to leave the solenoids off for the momentary. There's 2 O-rings on this one, 1 on that, 2 on this one. This one here has a rubber piece that wraps around it. So make sure that you put it back in the same spot. There is a ledge that it wraps around. And then you're going to need to lube that up and get that back up into your retainer. And then the solenoid goes down first. And this solenoid sits on top. And it also, let me get this pointed the right direction. This one bolts onto the other, or down this way to the rest of the valve body. And there's a 10mm bolt that holds that in. So I'm going to leave that off for now because I don't have my seals. And I'll put that on after a while. Stem up on the valve, spring, end plug. Little leg faces outboard on all of these. Valve hollow end up, spring. Stem up. Spring. End plug. And this one come out pretty damn snug. So you're probably going to want to just barely go in so you don't have to try to get your end plug back up against it, because it does need to be against this retainer. I'm going to go in just barely enough. Hollow into the valve up, spring, retainer, stem up, spring, retainer, stem up on the valve, spring, end plug, and retainer. facing the wrong way. Faces inboard on this one. Hollow end up. Spring. And retainer faces inboard on that also. Now you're not going to, usually don't get these. If you do get them, I mean, you can change them. 2 O-rings, lube that up. 2 10mm, hold that in. And then when you bolt this valve body down, that ground needs to be on that bolt. Okay, looking at this separator plate, kind of hard to distinguish what it's supposed to be. Looks like it's supposed to be a GC, would appear to be. And let's see which direction this goes. Seemed like it was down here. I think it goes in there just like so on this one. And then this separator plate, that needs to poke up through right there. So this needs to face this way. Alright, let me go get my bolts and we'll go through that. Your shortest bolt goes here, 1.155. You have 3 10mm nuts. One goes here, one goes here, one goes here. And not that it matters, in case you need to find one. You don't want them too tall. 2.55. Probably not going to find a nut that's too tall to fit there, but there you go. You got, these 3 bolts are the same, but this one has the bracket on it. And they are 1.665. Ground bolt goes there. This one, and this one. 2.850. We got this one here is green. There's only 2 green bolts in here. 3.190. There are, let's see, 6 of these. 3.750. They go here, 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 and here. And then you got this one here. Has a bracket on it. It's 4.423. And it sits on there just like so. Let me get this tightened up and we'll go through the rest of them. Oh, this bolt right here is the other one for this solenoid. Holds that solenoid in. Alright, we have 3 bolts here, here, and here that are, the solenoid has to go in first before you put this one on. They are 1" 160. And then we have the other green bolt, 3" 950. And then there is a bracket on this bolt and that holds this tube in. Make sure you get that position properly. 3.750. Just make sure it is holding and sitting on top of that tube. black connector, white connector, green connector up underneath here, and brown. It might be easier to leave this off to get your brackets in there. We're going to go ahead and put this in there for right now. Yeah, I'm on now. Quit being like that. There we go. And then that's going to go on your bracket. This needs to come up here. It'd probably be easier to leave this undone to get your bolt in off of your ground right here. And I think I'm going to turn this solenoid just a little bit. Needs to come down some. See if we can get this without pulling it back off, but I don't think so. So anyway, I'm going to turn this solenoid down. No point in filming that. And then we'll be ready to put the valve body on the case. Servo and band. This part has to go in the anchor in the case. This piece needs to have the pin pushing against it. We have an O-ring out here, smaller one. O-ring here, larger one. Got the return spring. Depending on what servo you have as to what seals you're going to use, you're going to have one seal that's left over. Also, I forgot to mention, I had to drill my cap out and use a blind hole puller to pull this cap out. It was not coming, period. I put a heat gun on it. I put air coil on it, PB blast. I left a heat gun on it an entire day, and it didn't budge at all. So I had to end up drilling the hole out and used a blind hole puller and pulled it out. Sent them to have the cap welded, which they did do, but I told them to look and see if the dealership sold it. And by the time that they came back with the cap welded, I had a brand new one sitting here, and dealership had it in stock. So there's your part number for the Mazda one anyway. These are all different for different transmission or different makes that you're using. There's a bolt-on one. In fact, I think there's two different bolt-on ones. There's a smaller of this cap. This is the large one, 2.515, I believe. And go ahead and lube this up in here. Spring. Go ahead and lube up your, I guess this is an accumulator. I have to look up and see what they call the thing. And it goes in this way. And there's a snap ring that holds that in. that. We have a D-seal that goes on the servo itself. We have our adjuster and a lock nut. We have this plate that goes on top, bevel faces down. Snap ring is going to hold that all in the case, and the return spring is going to sit there. That's all going to be in there like so. I can't remember what we've talked about, what we haven't talked about. So I got the bushing done for the drum here. And go ahead and put this drum together. So we got D-seal in the center and on the outer part of our piston. We have a check ball in our piston here. You need to make sure that thing rattles around. Go ahead and lube all that up. Alright, why are we being like that? Why are we stuck? And that may be down. Let's see. Return spring, retainer, opening of our snap ring going to be over in here somewhere, and short end of the taper up. And this is how I did mine. Since this knobs come out here very far out to the outside, it's kind of hard to get on here and not be in the way of your snap ring. Suncoast makes a retainer for the 45 RFE that is for the 4C, I believe. Yeah, 4C snap ring, and it fits pretty good right out here. So that's what I use to compress this down. So that's what I'm going to do again. Z-lock rings on the tower. I think we talked about them, how they go together, and just barely open these things up. Well, it done locked itself. I'll try to not break the stupid things. Of course, not around the camera. We don't want to come apart, so they go together just like so. Let me compress this down. Start off with steel, alternate clutches and steels up. And then our snap ring. And on the back. Have our bearing. The outer race is going to face down. The lip's going to face up on your sprag. Oil dam. Snap ring. O-rings on those two, and then you can put your race in. You can air check the drum right there. There is a snap ring that holds this ring gear on. Really no need to take this off. If any of this is bad, you're gonna be buying a new one anyway. Let's see. And this is gonna probably be difficult. Probably going to regret having taken this thing off. It's a really stupid design. So what I'm probably going to do is just talk about this and then put it in off camera, because this is going to be a pain. I can tell already. Yeah. Okay. So lube up your bearings and your race. There is a snap ring that holds this race in here also. Here again, if any of these bearings go bad, I can just about guarantee the rest of this is gonna be blown to smithereens. Then your ring gear is gonna sit on here. Lube up your bearing too, or also. Your ring gear is gonna go down. Bearings are going to press on. The transfer gear, or the pinion gear, is going to go with the deeper recess side up, the side that the bearing fits on, as it won't fit on this side. So it's going to press on, and your race is going to press on. Put your nut on, tighten it down. I'll get you the turning torque specs and stake it in place. Once you get all that squared away, like I said, the bearing's going to go up on top after everything's all together. When this goes down into the case, there's a snap ring on this sun gear. There's no need to take that snap ring off. Actually, this is going to sit down inside the drum. Your race is going to go with the lip in. It's going to sit down, and then you're going to spline this into the drum. This is the bearing that this race rides on right here. Goes in the case. You're going to have to line one of these flats up with a spot in the case. Let me get this all pressed back together, and then we'll be back. Here we are, assembled, staked in place. Turning torque is good. That was a pain to get that snap ring in there. I would say don't take it apart. There's no need to. Like I said, the bearing goes up there. Here's your race. And here's our race. Your differential seals will vary depending on what make you have. Here's the ones for the Mazda. This is the bearing for the case. You have the selective shims and the race for the bell housing. I did not take this bearing off of this side. This is the race. I did not take it out for that bearing on that side. Get our spider gears back in here. Just not going to sit over you. Alright. Remembering how I had this sitting so I can put these back in the way they came out. There's a washer on your side gear on both sides. This one's going to sit up in here. Got a washer on each side on your spiders. Make sure we're lined up. Looks like we are. Your hole for your roll pin. Make sure we're lined up. The roll pin for that. Your ring gear goes with the ID marks down, and you find where I marked this. Right there, 17 millimeters on these. And I'll get you the torque specs for that. Put your bearings in your race back on your bell housing and your case. And then that's it for the differential. Of course, this is two-wheel drive. The all-wheel drive, obviously different. Low clutch, we have a lip seal. It's going to face towards you on this. D-shaped seal here. And this bushing is horribly bad about wearing on here. And if it doesn't cause your drum to get ring cut, it'll screw up the sealing rings that are in here and it won't seal properly. And I should have showed it to you before to see how much wobble there was, but you can see how worn the bushing is. So this is critical. It has to be changed. So since you're going to have all the all the bushings, you might as well change them. Now the problem I'm running into is my bushing kit did not have the direct drum bushing, and this is the one that was in there, and it was bad as well. And it did not come in the kit. And I have one that's pretty damn close. Did not have the grooves cut in here. I'm trying to machine it so it fits properly, and I'm going to file a groove in there for that. And still working on that. Still working on the socket for the nut. I'm going to make one if I can get access to a lathe. Go ahead and lube up your drum. They keep telling me they're going to buy me one, a little mini lathe for here, but I've yet to see it. Been hearing that for about a year now. But I've also been hearing I'm going to get a chain hoist to lift up these heavy transmissions. I haven't received that yet. I've also been told I was going to get this compressor out here creates a tremendous amount of water. I've never seen one that is as horrible as this thing is. And something about here, because this is the second compressor and it's still doing it. I bought a water separator for it. It's still producing so much damn water. It's just unreal. They haven't even fixed that yet. Make sure that your return spring is down in that recess and that it's going to be in that recess there. We're going to put our opening of our snap ring away from either straddling that right there or in the center right there. Probably going to put it right there like that, depending on how, when this stretches out, how it looks. But short end of the taper up again. Alright, it did not, if I was going to put it over here, just a little bit of the tip was going to be hanging over. I don't want that. Alright, dish down on the cushion plate. Alternate stills and clutches up. Pressure plate on top, rounded edge of the tooth up. On the pump, here's a few things we need to talk about. Here's a gasket that goes in between the pump and the case. It's going to go here. If need be, you can use some grease to hold it in place. I would put it on here, lower it down on your sealing rings on your input shaft. The earlier ones were this style. This is what they gave in the rebuild kit. And they're butt cut, which means they go together like so. These are kind of like a plastic. These are even more plastic than the others. I don't know how to describe it. They are, guess, more like Teflon. I don't know. Kind of odd. If you've ever dealt with sealing rings, you'll know what I'm talking about between the plastic and this style, which is the older style. You only want, either one, you only want to open it up far enough to get it on there. If you open these up too far, they tend to want to stay out. If you open these up too far, you can break the back of them and never know that you broke the back of them, and then they don't work properly. If need be, and you're using this style, puts you some grease in there to help keep it in the bore. These still fit really snug, so I'm going to stay with the later plastic ones. You can do whatever you want. Once you get it, the pump down, there is an O-ring that goes on the end of the input shaft. We'll be showing that again later. Pressure front seal in, a little bit below flush. There's an O-ring that goes here. There are no ID marks about how these pump gears go in, so just pay attention to how they were in there before. You can see the wear marks where the converter come through. Just put them back in the same way they came out. The pump bushing. The style that I got in the bushing kit is a bronze solid. There is a step to this pump bushing. This one still fits pretty good. I'm going to reuse it because it's got the original style step to it, so I want to stay with that. Center up your gears. When you put that on here, on this bushing here, pay attention to how deep your bushings are. Also pay attention to how they fit in there. This one has an oiling groove, and this replacement does also, but this one's fitting still really nice, so I'm just gonna reuse it. But I don't know if this is showing up on the camera. There's an oiling groove that starts up here at the top, goes down, does not quite go to the bottom of the bushing, then comes back up. That is facing this one up to this point right here, so it goes in like this, not like this. Let's see what else. These are the bolts that hold the pump to the case, 12 millimeters. These are the 5mm Allens that hold the body to the stator. So it's self-centering, so you don't have to worry about not getting it properly. And just line up your ports and then put your 5mm in and tighten those down. And I believe that's it for the pump. Okay, this bearing and race goes down in the case before everything else. I'll show that when we get there. This race, 4 tabs, goes on the back of here, and it's only going to line up one way. Alright, now bearing goes on the back of here. Race down. Let's see. Nope, I put that. Yeah, put that race on the wrong side. I think I did. Well, I don't think so. I think it has to go on that other way. Bearing goes right side down. 3-tab race goes right there. It's going to sit on top. Come on now. Drop in there. Bearing and race. Race goes down. Sun gear goes with the shiny side down. Grooves up. Inner race. It's going to face down on the planetary. That's going to sit on top. Bearing and race. Race is going to face down. This hub goes inside of here. Snap ring goes in there. Four tab race goes in here with the tabs down. It's going to sit on there. Four tab race goes on here. Let's see. And it sits right there. Looks like so. Bearing and race goes on here. Race down. And then the race goes here. Make sure the side that was riding against the bearing is back against the bearing. And those tabs fit right down in there. High reverse clutch. There's difference between different units, so keep that in mind when you're doing this drum. You got a D-seal in the center, D-seal out here. Make sure your check balls are nice and free. Go ahead and lube that up. On right here, you need to make sure you got the updated piston. It's a lot wider than the previous one, and they were bad about cracking right in here. It'd be very hard to see it, but this is the wide one. If you're going to change the piston, if you buy it new, it comes as a set. They changed this piston when they changed this piston. So if you're going to do used, you need to find the piston that was with this and put it in there as well. Don't just put one of them. Alright, gonna be like that. Here we go. Go ahead and lube that up. Got a D-seal here and a D-seal here. Go ahead and lube that up. Return spring. Get you, it should come in the kit, but if it doesn't, you want to get the bonded piston for this and change this as well. And I don't think I lubed that up. Make sure that's lubed up. Do the same thing on this snap ring, short end of the taper up. We either going to be on each side of that. If that can't happen, we're gonna need to go, well, we're gonna have to try to make that happen because we don't want the opening over here unless it can keep both tips inside of that. Okay, that'll work just like that. High clutches, start off with the steel, alternate steels and clutches up. Step up on the pressure plate. Reverse clutch. Start off with the steel, alternate clutches and steels up, rounded edge of the tooth up. Snap ring. You have a bearing and race. It goes here. Race down. Oh, wrong one. Race down. And bearing and race on this side. Race down. Sealing rings on the accumulator are scarf cut. A spring. And the end cover with a O-ring on it. Lube that up. Make sure the spring gets inside of here. And I think we're hitting on it. Here we go. Snap ring, short end of the taper up. There's two different pistons and two different size inner O-rings. So the way you tell the inner O-ring from the outer O-ring, there's a flat side and there's a rounded side. The rounded side to the outside is the outside seal. There should be instructions in your rebuild kit as to which one fits which, but obviously the larger one fits the larger piston and the smaller one fits the smaller piston. I don't know if you can see that rounded edge. This is the larger piston. Get in there. Lube all that up. And put your piston in. You have to line up the tabs on the tabs. of our selective race, make sure you put the side that was towards the bearing back towards the bearing. This is what sets the end play in the unit. This is the critical point. These sealing rings here are directional. If you don't put them in the proper way, they are not going to work right. So they go together just like that. And this V shape is on this side. This point is on this side, pointing that way. Need be, puts you some grease in the groove to keep these sealing rings in there. Okay, there are 2 O-rings on these 2 bolts. Here's our other bolts that hold that to the case. Thin bead of silicone between here and the case. Okay, this is the linkage for the Mazda. A few things we're going to go over here before we stick it in the case. You don't need to take it down this far, but in case you needed to, I got information on the Patreon side as far as the measurements of all this stuff. And this is a bit of a pain to do. You're going to want to hold this back. You got to put this detent on here. I mean this seat on here. Don't forget. Alright, you're going to want to put it kind of equidistance. It's got to fit down inside that seat. Probably somewhere right there. That ought to work. And this sits on, let's see, sits on here. And we got a cotter key that holds that in. And hopefully I put that on the right side because I forgot to pay attention to it. Let's see if I have it. And of course I got it on upside down. It goes this way. Come on, get back in there. There we go. So this is going to sit down inside of that. Alright. Probably want to put this on the other side. Put your cotter pin in. There we go. Linkage goes on that side. Other thing we need to do is put our linkage seal. It's going to go in the case this way. Put that in the case, and then change your O-ring on your little plug that plugs for here. And then I guess we are ready to go in the case. You'll see how well this shows up on camera. So this is going to go in, the guide is going to go in with this side facing up. Roll pin's going to go in through this hole over here. There, and our roll pin goes in here. And it was recessed 490 thousandths. Almost right on the money. Okay. So we have the O-ring on our plug. Alright. So the park pawl goes on. The park rod goes on just like that and sits on here. From the top we have a 10mm Allen. Put some thread sealant on that. Let's see how well this is going to go. Trying to hold this up while putting this all together. This has to go into here while going in here. And not losing everything. We can put that back in after the fact, really, because So we're going to put the roll pin in. And this linkage goes down here. And that little recess in the shaft has to line up with this bolt. That's what keeps it where it needs to be, that little tip. Make sure that's where it needs to be. Tighten that down. Alright, then make sure that your linkage is on there. And line up your roll pin on both of these. And drive your roll pin in. Let me get that done. We'll go on to the next part. Alright, once that's in, you put your put your 10mm in. You want to make sure this stays in the center of that rooster comb. And over here we have our park pole. And just on camera, you got your park rod right there. This has to be up behind it. The tip needs to be facing up. Our spring goes on top of here and then loops around to the front of that, and our hold down or retainer, whatever you want to call it, goes here, and the 10mm goes on top of that. Make sure you don't pinch that spring between the retainer and the case. Alright. Looks like we're working okay. I think we already talked about the Z-Lock sealing rings on here. Here's your feed port. Has to line up with that hole right there. We have 2 bolts with O-rings on them. One that does not. This is a short one. The 2 with O-rings are 17mm. The one without is a 14. 24 to 28 foot-pounds on that. Okay, our low sprag, you have your small lug. It's going to fit right here in the case. This side is going to face down. And the snap ring is going to, that's the wrong one. Here's the right one. One leg of the snap ring is going to fit in that hole. The other one's going to be right there. Step down on our pressure plate, and the small lug's going to go over there again. Alternate steels and clutches up. Alright, dish up on the cushion. Then we have our ring and our return spring sits on that. The feed port of our piston or of our housing is to face this hole over here, and we need to put our O-rings on, or D-seals. And you got two sizes of the outside. You also have a 6 or a 7 clutch that can be in there. Oh, I'm sorry, I think that's on the low clutch. I think this is got a set of mount that belongs in here. Go ahead and lube this up. Okay, feed port at the 9 o'clock. Our lug is going to be over here at the about 4 o'clock position. Okay, the opening of this this little leg needs to be right here. This one right here needs to be right here. It's got to go down fairly even. So you can either get you like they show and go through the center of there. I just get the bar and push it down. Just like that. Now, there's 2 Z-lock sealing rings. Same way as before, I've already put them on. You got your bearing on here. And put your drum in. Can't wobble this too much, especially with a new bushing. It's going to fit fairly snug, and you're only going to be able to turn one direction because the sprags are going to grab a hold of it. Here we go. So we're turning counterclockwise, locking clockwise. We have the bearing raced down. Clutch hub. Make sure your bearing's on there. Make sure your race is on the other side. Race is on here. Bearings on there. Make sure we didn't chip nothing. Okay, looks okay. Oiling grooves up. Bearings on. Bearing is on. Race is on. Bearing is on. Race is on. Alright, we have tabs that are close together. I'm going to go over here. Alternate steels and clutches up. Okay, snap ring goes with the opening over here. This is the way they show it, but I don't like that at all. It doesn't specify. So I'm going to put it over here. Where it's totally supported. So that's where I'm going to put it. Put our return spring in. The tab sits right here, the opening for our speed sensor needs to be sitting there. And our hold down bracket needs to sit just like that. And I'm in the wrong hole. We have our low reverse accumulator. There's 2 O-rings on here. Inner and outer springs. Cover. O-ring sits in like that. Lube that up. Make sure them springs sit in that recess. Make sure your bearings on your drum. Bearings on your drum. We have the lube tubes. Have a bracket on them. Make sure we're getting in the right spot. Have another lube tube. And we have this seal. This tube right here is your oil level indicator. Pull this bolt out right here, and when it drips out, you're full. Okay, put you a thin bead of silicone on there. I use Loctite 598. Also use EVO 300, just any good grade of silicone. You can use ultra black. 2 O-rings on 2 bolts that go here. These are the other 2 bolts that hold that support on from the other side that these hold on. 14 to 16 foot-pounds on these, and then 12 millimeters that hold the rest of this on. I did think I forgot to talk about that transfer gear that comes through from the other side, the nuts on this side. There's really not much need to take it off unless the bearings are bad. You're gonna have to probably make your own socket. I've been told that the Ford front differential axle socket is they think pretty close, but I looked around, I couldn't find a socket, so I made my own. And you can probably make your own out of 3/4 inch exhaust pipe, 1 3/4 inch, I'm sorry, and notch it out yourself. Like I did, I just made mine out of a socket. I was originally going to just use the socket, but ended up getting a piece of pipe welded onto here so I could use the socket end, just 3/4 down to a half, and just notched it out. Took the nut, marked it out, ground it down. And the turning torque on that, I believe, was 5.5 to 11.5 inch-pounds. New O-ring on your pass-through connector, and lube that up. And the clip's gonna clip into that spot right there. That has to line up right there. Okay, they want you to take the anchor out to do this. I don't have the socket for it. The biggest I have is an E20, and it's a lot bigger than that. So put your lug in there, and you don't have to take it out to do that. If you do take that out, you're going to want to put thread sealer on it. You're just going to have to hold your band up while you're going down. And put your bearing in. Now you're going to want to do your servo next. So you want to make sure that you get the band. Now, like I said, there's a couple different setups. Here's a gasket for Nissan style. You want to lube this up really well. Back your adjustment off. Make it easier to get it in there. Make sure your spring's on the spot it needs to be, and it gets in this pocket in the case. You got bevel facing down and our snap ring. Alright, make sure it's in there, and then guide your pin onto your band. Alright, they want you to tighten this thing down till it won't turn. And back it off 5 turns. I'm going to show you why that's wrong. Okay, you're going to want about 1/8 of an inch of travel. And let's see if we can get this in here. See if I can do this by myself. You see that travel right there? That is more than 1/8 of an inch of travel. So let's see if we can get a measurement off of it without hitting the camera. Let's see. Let's see if we can just go off of the case here down to that seat. We have 1.380". Inch 450. Oh, that can't be right. Trying to do this by yourself is not easy. It's not going all the way down. Alright, let's see if we can get off the servo. inch 510. Inch 700. So that's 200 thousandths. We're about 75 thousandths too much. You're gonna have problems with that. You want it to be around 1/8 of an inch. So what I would do, go in till it stops. Back off 2.5 turns. Check it there. That's much better. Let's see what we got. We got inch 510. Inch 600, so we can back off just a little bit. Once you're satisfied with that, you can use a crow's foot to hold it, tighten it down. Once you're satisfied with that, lube up your cover. Oh, man, that doesn't screwed up. You can lube up the bottom. You can lube up that O-ring if you want to. But you're going to want to put you a bead of silicone right there. That's going to keep that corrosion from happening again. Okay, you can air apply that, make sure everything's still working. We can do it right here, or we can do it from the valve body side. If you're going to do it without the valve body on, you're going to have to plug the hole. Okie dokie. Go ahead and put our speed sensors in. And let's figure out which one goes where. Okay, this one sits on here like so. And this little tab sits right up against here. Temp sensor goes over here. 10mm bolt holds that in. And this bracket holds this one in. This little bracket holds the wiring down. A little V sits right there. Little bracket with our magnet on it sits right there. Our race on our sun gear. And there's different drums for this, different sun gears. And the 3 clutch setup uses a smaller sun gear, and also uses the same clutches, steels, pressure plate, and snap ring, but you have a different stack up. You'll start with 1 steel on the bottom, a clutch, 2 steels, a clutch, 2 steels, a clutch, pressure plate. So you have 5 steels total and 3 clutches. One more clutch to go. There we go. We're even, we're down. There's 2 different styles of transfer gears and input shafts. Okay, there's a 3 sealing ring and there's a 2. You have to have a match set, and you want to put back whatever came out. So if you look right here, you can see that there's a boss for the sealing ring to ride on. So make sure you have the right setup. On the gasket, there's inferior gaskets out there, and they'll give you problems. This is a good style. It's got a bead right here. Mazda is the only one that sells this separately. On the Patreon side, I'll have the number for that. Just make sure that your gasket has that bead. If it does not, you might want to consider, if it's never been touched before, you might want to consider reusing it if you can't get your hands on it. $12mm on that. O-ring on your shaft for lockup, make sure it's there or your lockup's not going to work properly. Go ahead and lube that up. Go ahead and lube up our diff bearing. 4 different differentials depending on what you got. This is the Mazda one. Okay, on the Volkswagen only. Up here, I think it's either in this corner or it's up in this corner. There is a spot. The Volkswagen's the only one that has the oil cooler that bolts to the case. There is a port either up here or up here. It's shaped like that. This gasket goes there. If you don't put it on there, you're going to ruin your gear train. So up to 2003, I believe it was a skinny one. You want to keep your old one, and you're going to want to measure. The early one's 8 thousandths, the late one is about 24 to 30 thousandths. You need to make sure you put the right one in there. 03, somewhere in 03 they changed. So you may or may not have the thick or thin one in 2003. That's why you need to measure your old one. So make sure you don't throw that thing away until you know which one you need. Okay. And you got to put our filter on. There's 2 different filters. I believe it's either Nissan or Volkswagen also. The filter is different. All the others use a filter that look like this. So just be aware that there are 2 different filters. Make sure you get the right one on there. And also put it on that dowel pin down there. Put your thin bead of silicone on there again. Put your case half down. And there's the bolts for that, 12 millimeters. This works out. We have a seal, goes right there. We have this seal, goes right there. You want to put your manual linkage in low. So you want that valve to be sticking out just like that. And since I have this way, it's going to want to tend to fall on me, so I'm going to have to set this back down till I get the valve body on. Once I get the valve body on, then we'll come back. Okay, silver bolts all the same except for this one. This is the longer one that goes here. Make sure your grounds get on that bolt. Plug your wires in, and your bracket goes on that bolt right there. And I don't know how well this is going to show up on camera, but when you get your valve body on there, I don't think it's going to show up at all. If you look right down in here, the edge of that valve is sticking out about yay far. Whatever they said about Mazdas is wrong. It's just barely sticking out that little area that we talked about. And hopefully, I don't know if it's showing up at all. Anyway, when you get that on there, when you turn your linkage, you should see your manual valve moving. If you don't see it moving, you missed it. So don't go any further until you can see that happen. they give you a pan gasket to go on here. I wouldn't use it. I would put silicone. That's what this one had anyway. So I'm going to go back with silicone, 10 millimeters on that. And then we'll put our top stuff on. I think I might have said before these were 17s. These are 19 millimeter. 10 millimeter, 10 millimeter. Put your wires on. Wire there. Line up your neutral switch. This is your lineup for it. There's a bracket that goes on there, and you stick a drill bit in there and it lines it up. 2 10s here. And that's it. We're done with the valve body, or done with the transmission.